Venus stations retrograde on Sunday, December 19th at 5:36 a.m. Eastern, and it will move backwards through the sign of Capricorn until January 29th. During those 6 weeks, Venusian topics of love, beauty, harmony, and peace will be brought for review. I'm here to help you understand what's ahead of us and give you some helpful tips, as well as talk about the effects of Venus retrograde on each rising sign. My name is Anastasia. For those of you who don't know, I practice traditional Western astrology. I do natal chart and predictive readings. If you'd like one, there's a link down below. Please subscribe to my channel. If you're new here, leave me a comment or a like. I really appreciate that. Before I dive in, I wanted to let you know that on December 18th, I'm doing a webinar called Astrology of 2022. It's dedicated to the events coming up next year. I will also talk about the meaning and, give you some insights on that. So there's a link to sign up in the description as well. So Venus retrograde. First of all, Venus is the planet that is connected to our values and our desires. It deals with love, beauty, harmony, peace, and accord. And so Venus, just like the moon, we talk about the full moon or the new moon, Venus has a cycle as well. And that cycle is the relationship of Venus to the sun. So Venus conjoins the sun 2 times in its cycle. There is a superior conjunction, which is when Venus is as far from the Earth as possible and Venus is moving direct. And there is also an inferior conjunction, which is when Venus is really close to us, and that's why she's the brightest in the skies right now. So if you go outside, you can see her at night. And that conjunction happens when Venus is moving backwards, so when Venus goes retrograde. And so similarly to a lunar cycle, that superior conjunction when Venus is far, far away from us is a beginning of a new cycle. New cycle of relating, new cycle of love and peace and, all of those desires, things we might desire in life. And then when it reaches completion, when it's reaches its fullness, it's the journey of Venus into the underworld. It's the moment in the cycle where we almost have forgotten the original insights and goals we had, and we need to face some darkness and rebalance. And the entire Venusian cycle takes about 19 months. It's about a year and a half. So Venus goes retrograde basically almost once every 18 months. So, during the retrograde period, we definitely need to face certain realities of our relationships, especially things that we may have avoided, especially if there is you still care for someone or you really dislike them and you pretend like you don't. This might be the time when everything will just bubble up to the surface. You cannot pretend like it doesn't exist. It's also the time when you're called to integrate your likes and dislikes, your love and hate, beauty and ugliness in your relationships, because it's the reality of life, right? Whenever there's light, there's also darkness. So there might be situations arising in your relationships that call for that honest facing of the, maybe you've been lying to yourself and saying that your partner will decide that they want children, but they keep telling you that they don't want to have children. And then something happens during the retrograde that finally opens your eyes and you're forced to figure out, do you deal with this or do you move on and go find a new person? And of course, because Venus retrograde, all of the topics connected to Venus, like beauty, desire, harmony, peace, all of those things, there's a sense of uncertainty. So we may feel that 6 weeks period from December 19th until January 29th, we may feel more insecure, unsure about relationships. It's generally not the best time to start new relationships. Don't be afraid though if you are in a relationship. It doesn't mean the relationship will end. It just means that this is a test for your relationship. I actually looked back at some of my dating history, and there was at some point, there was a point in 2011, I believe, when Venus went, or was it 2012? May have been 2012, when Venus went retrograde in Virgo. And one of my relationships fell apart at that period. But only if things are already on the rocks, like that relationship was for sure not going to last. So don't fear the retrograde if you've been together for a long time, if you know this person, they're like your ride or die partner, you'll be fine. This is a retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So, of course, like Capricornian matters are brought up for review, and Capricorn is the sign of ambition, achievement, value. Like, Capricorn is ready to put in the work. And it seeks a lot of times partners that build up the status. So in the house that Venus will be retrograde, the house that is Capricorn in your chart, as well as the houses that are Taurus and Libra in your chart, you will be revising things. So you may be questioning, if it's your 11th house, you'll be questioning, are your friends being supportive? If it's your 7th house, you may be questioning the value of the partnership you're in. Like, is it the true great partner, or are you with them because you're scared of being alone, right? Like, some of those things might come up. You will feel it stronger if you have cardinal placements, Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, especially between 11 and 26 degrees, because then Venus will be aspecting those placements, but it also really depends on which houses get activated in your chart, and more on that in a second. Some of the major dates of this period: December 25th, this will be our second Venus-Pluto conjunction, and there was one on December 11th. So Venus-Pluto might be that like inciting incident, and look back at December 11th and see what was happening in your relationships at the time. Venus-Pluto brings up secrets, makes you feel insecure, makes you feel obsessive, brings up any like hidden stuff internally and externally. So if nothing happened on December 11th, maybe it will happen on December 25th. And once again, listen further to find out what it means specifically for you. December 29th, Mercury is going to conjoin Venus. This is a beautiful energy for talking about things, for airing out any conflicts, and you will likely express yourself more beautifully and eloquently. January 5th, Venus is going to sextile Neptune. This could be a great time where you feel more forgiving towards others, more generous. Maybe you start to prioritize spirituality and soul's connection in your relationship versus other things. And finally, on January 8th, we have that conjunction between the Sun and Venus. And this is a turning point, right? Like, that's the half point in the retrograde. So this could be the moment of truth, deeper understanding, maybe the moment where you start to see how you can integrate those light and dark sides of your relationships. So to sum up, we can all expect feeling a little bit insecure about the way we look, about our relationships, and even about things that we desire. Say you've been, studying for to become a lawyer, and then suddenly Venus goes retrograde in your 9th house for Taurus risings, and you begin to question if that is what your soul desires, because maybe you like making jewelry. Relationship topics will be brought up for review. Talk about things. Don't pretend like everything's okay. Don't let things just, simmer underneath, because it will backfire. It's like a pimple that's going to get popped at the end, or a volcano, something like that. You can't expect healing. Anything that you haven't faced, that's the part of that, that's why don't avoid the conflicts. It's better to talk about things honestly than suppress your feelings and pretend like everything's okay. Exes can be coming back, even if they don't come knocking on your door or, sending you a text message. There is a chance that your mind will be drawn to them or past relationships. And that is totally fine as long as you are using it as a learning experience, right? Maybe you're looking back and you're realizing that this past relationship didn't work when it comes to affection, but it worked when it came to communication. And you could usually use those past experiences to learn things. Avoid major financial investments. Your sense of style might be compromised, right? Don't spend lots and lots of money on dresses you may later regret. Avoid beauty procedures. Surgeries are better postponed, especially cosmetic surgeries. It's different if it's like, a colon operation. And maybe any like redecoration, redesign projects can be postponed. Anything that deals with beauty and your sense of like confidence, because that might be compromised. Finally, wanted to let you know that if you are born with Venus retrograde natally, this will actually be a lot easier period for you, because for you, this is like, you live with this Venus retrograde. So you're getting a chance to flow through it, while the rest of the people who have it direct, they may struggle a lot more. So another positive news, don't be afraid if that is the case. So let's talk about it through all the zodiac signs. Listen for your rising sign, ideally. You can also listen for your moon sign, but rising is the most accurate. So for Aries rising, Venus goes retrograde in your 10th house of career, and it also rules your 2nd and your 7th house. So there might be a sense of you re-evaluating your connections, people in your life, your one-on-one relationships, as well as your finances and your values when it comes to your goals, right? Like Venus in the 10th makes you ask if the job you're doing makes you smile. Venus in the 10th, whoever has it natally, people are like movie directors, they're photographers. Like whenever Venus is natally in the 10th, you want to be creative, and you also want to enjoy the work that you do. So I think Venus going retrograde in your 10th will bring a re-evaluation of your goals. And then together with the goals will come a look at your relationships and a look at your finances. Like if you want to take on a creative career, do you have the money needed to perhaps, not do your 9-to-5 job for a while? Does your partner support you making that move? So maybe you need to talk a little bit about that. And a great solution could be starting partnerships. Maybe in order to start that creative business, you can collaborate. You should collaborate with a friend, and this way you will feel safer about it. For Taurus risings, Venus goes retrograde in your 9th house, and it rules your 1st and your 6th. So for you, it will be more important because you are Venus ruled. So whenever Venus goes retrograde, there might be, like it matters to you more. You are, you're on this journey for a while with Uranus being in your 1st house, on a journey of seeking independence and living authentically and being truthful to yourself. So with Venus retrograde in the 9th house, topics of beliefs, education, and travel can come for review. Even your place of living. Are you happy with where you live? Does your city reflect what you want to accomplish, right? Like maybe your goal is to live in Paris, but you live in the middle, like, I don't know, you live somewhere else, right? And like, how can you get closer to what you're trying to accomplish? So feeling dissatisfied with your place of living, feeling dissatisfied with your education might come at this time. Maybe you're, the example I gave earlier, maybe you're studying to be a lawyer, but you realize that you actually would rather do something creative. Legal issues can get drawn out. If you're waiting for a visa to go travel, there might be issues there. And it's also a lovely time to consider your beliefs, to consider your place in the world. Because, do you take really good care of what you are reading, what you're learning, what you're watching on TV, or like, how do you spend your time? Because what you ingest really is reflected in who you are as a person. For Gemini risings, Venus goes retrograde in your 8th house, and it rules your 12th and your 5th. So this is a lot of dark house action with the 8th and the 12th. But Venus in the 8th will make you face your fears, most likely, as well as your dependencies you have on others. So there might be a case where maybe you depend too much on your family and what they say. maybe you don't even express it, but like you allow the society and the views of others to influence your life. Maybe you depend on joy, like, you know, like 8th house is shared things, and like Venus rules your 5th house, so maybe you depend on gambling, maybe you depend on sex too much or alcohol, to a point where it starts to damage your life, because Venus also rules your 12th house, which is connected to self-undoing. So this could be a period where you take a close look in the mirror and you see how you spend your money, your time, and who do you let into your mental space, right? Like, do you allow other people influence you? Are you being too trusting, or are you not being trusting enough? Like, is there something that you do where you hold control really tightly and you don't allow other people to come and support you? Therapy could be lovely at this time, facing any issues surrounding, sexual things and children, and any fears you may have may be brought up for review for you at this time. For Cancer risings, this is quite important because Venus goes retrograde in your 7th house and rules your 11th and your 4th house. So topics of relationships and your home, your place of living, will likely come up, because Venus is retrograding in the 7th, but it's ruling your 4th, right? So maybe you and your partner disagree on where to live. And those are some things you'll have to talk about. Maybe Venus also rules your 11th house. Maybe they're not supportive of your friends. Maybe they don't support your future goals. So issues in relationships do come up with Venus being retrograde in the 7th. And it's a great period to look for more joy, to look for more honesty, to ask yourself whether you are valued in this relationship, or, do you value your partner? Do you give them the support that they need, for example, and do they give that back to you? And exes may come back for you even more so than for other signs, just because Venus is retrograde in your house of significant partnerships. For Leo risings, Venus goes retrograde in your 6th house and it rules your 10th and your 3rd. So a lot of focus on career, your daily work, daily life. There may be a sense of dissatisfaction. Venus rules the 10th and it rules the 3rd, right? Like, are you hanging out with people who aren't quite supportive of you? Or do you do things that are just kind of like mundane and they don't support you moving forward? Like, have you been stuck at the job that was only supposed to be a temporary job, but you've been there for, the last year? So Venus going retrograde in the 6th might inspire you to look for new ways to find professional joy. It may also be about taking a class, because it rules your 3rd house. Like, do you want to be a writer, but you lack some understanding or, some knowledge of like screenwriting, whatever? Maybe it's the time for you to sign up for that course. It can also be very much about finding joy in the work that you do. And that doesn't always require quitting a job, right? Like, maybe it just requires you streamlining your process, hanging out with your colleagues outside, building stronger relationships of them. Venus in the 6th can also make you feel dissatisfied with your diet or the way your day is structured, right? Like, maybe there's some bills you have to pay. Basically, like, could be a really good time to streamline, to learn to take better care of your health, better care of your routines, and find more ways to enjoy your daily life. And if that requires a change, make that change. But if it's as simple as cutting off sugar or, cleaning your desk, that could be a solution as well. For Virgo risings, Venus is retrograde in your 5th house and it's ruling your 9th and your 2nd. So Venus being retrograde in the 5th house can definitely be a sign of someone from your past coming into your life. It can also be a time when you feel uninspired. Venus is happy in the 5th house. It's like her natural house joy. So when Venus is retrograde in the 5th, it is possible that things that used to make you happy no longer make you happy. Maybe your relationships feel stagnant. Maybe things you're studying feel stagnant because Venus rules your 9th house. maybe you've been, taking this course for a year and and you cannot wait for it to be over. So with Venus being retrograde in the 5th house, it's okay if you feel uninspired. Don't, find ways to look for that inspiration. Look back at when you were a kid. Venus is going retrograde, it goes backwards. So it asks you what truly makes you joyful, and perhaps you need to let go of some things that don't make you happy anymore. So that could bring, turmoil in your sexual, romantic relationship, but it can also be a challenge that inspires you to do more fun things together, to add more play to your relationships. For my Libra risings, as you know, I'm a Libra rising. Many of you may know. I don't forget to mention it every time. Venus goes retrograde in your 4th house, and it rules your 1st house of self, and it rules your 8th house of debts, healing, death, dependency, shared resources. So could be a few things. For sure, it will be significant for all of us, but for you Libra risings even more, because you are ruled by Venus. So when Venus goes retrograde in the house of home, family, safety, security, you may feel unsafe. Whether there's an actual pipe bursting in your apartment, or you realize that you don't want to live with your family anymore, there might be a sense of dissatisfaction with your roots, and maybe you are called to do some healing, right? Like maybe you're called to integrate, because Venus rules your 8th house. Instead of running away, we are entering the eclipses, right? Like the North Node and South Node will move in your 2nd and your 8th house, encouraging you to let go of some unhealthy dependencies and let go of the need perhaps to hold on too tightly to your past traumas. So it could be like Venus retrograde could be very literal, where something is changing in your home, you're moving, you're renovating, and that changes your identity and your self-understanding. But it can also be very much about do you feel supported? Do you feel nurtured? Do you feel secure? And if you don't, what can you change on a physical level where it comes to moving, or what can you change on an inner level? I think with Uranus being in the 8th house in the last year, there may have been a lot of sudden things and sudden fears brought up for you. And perhaps you had to revisit people in your life and actually face who's supportive and who isn't. So you're going through a sense of outward change in your home, but also a sense of psychological reshaping, where maybe you need to release some childhood traumas, accept them for what they were, and find new sources of support. Maybe you just look within and you realize that just you yourself and your faith or your spirituality or astrology is enough to keep you going. For Scorpio risings, Venus is retrograding in your 3rd house, and it rules your 7th and the 12th. So for Scorpio risings, there's a chance that there has been, your schedule maybe has been really busy, and to a point that maybe you devote a lot of time to your siblings. Maybe there's just a lot of things that you're taking care of, and it may feel like it's taking away from your time with your partner or from your alone time. So Venus retrograding in the 3rd may ask you to revisit the way you spend your time. Are you dedicating too much time to being on social media? Are you hanging out with people who are not supporting you? Venus is in Capricorn, right? Is it worth it? Are things that you're spending your time and energy and money on, are they worth it? And as well as Venus being in the 3rd house, ruling your 7th and the 12th, will also make you face the ways you communicate, and maybe certain things that you say that make people around you, like your siblings or your partner, feel hurt, right? Is there something that you're not saying and maybe you need to say? Or is there something that you're saying that is hurting your partner, right? Kind of revisiting that, as well as could be a lovely time to think about the skills that you have, and maybe you need to invest into yourself more and release some of the negative patterns of avoiding conflicts or pretending things don't bother you when they actually do. For Sag risings, Venus goes retrograde in your second house of finances and values, and it also rules your 6th house and your 11th. So Venus going retrograde in the second house may be quite literal about your money. Maybe you've been too, frivolous with your spending. So now is the time to figure out what better way you can invest your money or, save your money. Maybe it's time for you to think about saving for your pension, for your retirement. Definitely figuring out financial priorities can come for you. It's also about values in a sense that maybe you've been chasing financial things. Maybe you've been chasing financial gains, or you've been chasing, you've been working too hard to get to your goal. But with Venus in the second house, you may feel dissatisfied with it. You may feel like, yes, you're spending all this time, you're spending all this effort, and maybe the money is coming in, but maybe it's not exciting. So this could be a period where you reevaluate and even perhaps choose to let go of a source of income, or choose to let go of something you've been doing that takes away from things you truly enjoy. So changes to your finances are possible, both increase or decrease in income. Maybe even some money coming to you from past projects or past clients, because Venus is going retrograde and it's connected to things from the past. For Capricorn rising, this is a big deal. Venus goes retrograde in your first house. It rules the 5th and the 10th. So you get, 2 angular houses involved. First is your identity. 5th is creativity. 10th is career. How can you be more creative and pursue your dreams? And how do you need to change yourself, your body, your appearance, your presentation, your brand, your website to reflect your goals, right? Venus rules the 5th. Is there enough joy? Are you pursuing creative things? You're going through a sense of letting go of something. 5th house also deals with children, right? Are you planning to be a parent? And then if you are, how is that going to affect your professional goals? Maybe you need to address those things, talk to your bosses, reach out to people who can be very supportive of your goals, right? If you are a creative individual, maybe this is the time you take more action. Maybe it's also the time you kind of hunker down and take a look at what you look like, what you wear, how you communicate, and decide to bring more confidence or more straightforwardness to the way you perceive the world. Don't be afraid to let an old part of you die. Don't be afraid to reimagine your professional pursuits or your creative pursuits. Even romantic things, right? Because Venus rules your 5th and it's connected to romance. Maybe the way you are rebirthing yourself is by being more honest with your partner and telling them, actually, this is what I want. For Aquarius risings, Venus is going retrograde in your 12th house and it rules your 4th and the 9th. So Venus in the 12th can be tricky because Venus retrograde in the 12th will make you face all the ways in which you sabotage yourself. And it rules your 4th and it rules your 9th. So maybe some of the sabotage in relationships or pursuing your goals is connected to your family. Maybe you're using them as an excuse, right? For some of you, maybe they're truly taking away from your pursuits, but for others, maybe you use the duties you have to family as an excuse not to pursue your goals. So this could be a lovely time for you to look at how your commitment to your family or how your beliefs are holding you back, and perhaps redefine that. Are you happy spiritually? Are you taking care of your mental health, or have you been too focused on, once again, family, right? Maybe there's issues in the family and you've devoted a lot of time to helping them, but you've neglected yourself. Past relationships may come up, all the ways. It could be a great time to lean into spirituality, and if things fall apart, if you're facing any relationship difficulties, practice trust and practice surrender, and know that the universe is on your side and you will get through it. It just may be turbulent in the process. Finally, for all of my Pisces risings out there, Venus is going to be retrograde in your 11th house, and it rules your 3rd house, and it rules your 8th house. So with Venus retrograde in the 11th, this is connected to your friendships, and maybe there's a sense that your friendships are no longer satisfying. You will kind of be asking yourself, are these people supportive? Are they add value to my life, or do they take away from my goals? Like, are they there? Are they always in your corner, or do they question your goals and make you feel insecure? This is also a great time to look at your goals and your aspirations and maybe ask yourself, do you have the skills that it takes? Do you need to change your schedule? Do you need to commit to taking a new course, right? Like, Venus rules your 3rd house. Like, do you have the space to do things? Have you taken the classes? Is your schedule allowing for you to pursue your goals? And it's also connected to the 8th house, which is also other people's resources. How can you collaborate with other people? How can you reach out to other people and maybe be more vulnerable and ask them for support and talk to them honestly? With Venus ruling the 8th, there's also a possibility of like emotional healing and transformation that might get triggered by a situation with your friendship or your long-term plan. This is all I have. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a safe Venus retrograde. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.